Hey guys, I just wanted to come on here real quick and tell you about something that happened to a friend of mine. Might help save somebody else the trouble. Um, if you look, I don't know, depending on what reloading manual you look in, okay. You guys can't see there now. Um, but if you look in the Lee book, and he talks about loads and stepping down, and a lot of other people, starting at a 10% reduced load when you start loading, instead of starting at the dead on. Like, let me find, okay, here we got 45 ACP. Let's go to a 200 grain bullet. Alright, so here we got a 200 grain jacketed bullet. 200 grain lead bullet. We got our powders, our starting grains, and then our maximum grains, and then our cartridge overall length. And if you notice here, it has a cartridge overall length that varies per the powder. We don't have a cartridge overall length at our starting grains. Okay? And if we go to the beginning of 45 ACP, we should have a drawing that gives us a cartridge overall length of 1.275. Over here, these are all obviously under that figure. Not over that. This is this cartridge overall length on the drawing is what should function through the firearm feed wise. This cartridge overall length is relative to the amount of pressure that's building up in your case. So this has 200 grain lead bullet, 200 grain XTP, and then we go to a 230 grain bullet. Okay, well, what it doesn't talk about in this particular book, and a lot of them, is the style of your lead bullet. Okay, and what I'm talking about is the profile up here at the nose. Alright, this bullet here is a friend of mine cast those and made them. They should be 200 grainers. And this here is a Hornady 45 caliber 200 grain hollow point XTP bullets. Now, I really like these XTP bullets. I think they perform very well, but to each person's own desire. Alright, so if I take that bullet, try and hold it up here next to this one, I'm going to need my helper to get that off the floor. You can't quite see him, he's not on camera. This camera doesn't have quite as wide a view as the other one I was using, but hopefully it'll work good. So we come up here And you can see that this one here, the nose profile of the bullet is very different than that one. Okay? Well, what that does in this case is it, to get this to seat in properly to the barrel and to give you a profile that'll feed realistic, you have to seat this bullet a little bit deeper. And in all reality, by putting it in deeper, you're creating less space inside the cartridge. So now that powder load that you put in there is basically, it's like you put that powder load in a smaller cartridge. And it makes the pressure higher. And how my friend discovered it, they were firing some loads that they had made up, and the first thing he noticed was it ejected, and the empty went like twice as far as it should have. And he thought, man, something don't seem right there. So his son, fired a magazine worth, and okay, so then he had 3 in another magazine, and he fired those, and on the second one, it blew the side of the case out as that was going off. And that had to happen in the barrel. Because all that bullet should be out the end of the barrel, and all that pressure should be alleviated by the time, if we clear this one out. Okay, we look at how a 1911 functions. Alright, if we can see the top of the barrel there, as that we fire this handgun, the cartridge goes off, and as that starts to move back, that barrel stays in lock until it gets far enough back that the cam starts making the barrel pivot down to release the locking lugs, and the slide continues to come back. As it does, it extracts the cartridge and pulls it out of the chamber, and it's not supported anymore. But by the time that happens, the bullet is long gone. The pressure is out of the barrel. It's all now inertia that's going on. It can't be extracting that round while there's still pressure in there. Okay? And it blew the side of the case out way down here. It frickin' messed up the follower in the magazine, shoved it down in here. The spring's all bent up and twisted up. You got to replace the follower and the spring in that Wilson Combat magazine he had. But what I'm saying is, I've never gone below the starting grains. But as so many of us start dealing with all lead bullets that we're casting ourselves, a lot of times you're going to find that the profile on these bullets, especially in a handgun, is going to be different sometimes than the profile on a jacketed bullet. And it forces you, because this is shaped so much differently, to seat that bullet deeper here that I got, they're really old. And they're a weird semi-wad cutter design that's geared towards target shooting. I acquired them from a guy that used to shoot a lot of service rifles and service weapons in competition. And that's why that ammo is that way. And one thing I noticed with it is sometimes that projectile, or that round, I shouldn't say projectile, doesn't want to feed in properly because it doesn't have that profile out there of your typical 230 grain round ball full metal jacket military load that, you know, was the 1911 really likes to run. As soon as you start changing that bullet profile, you can have some feeding complications. Alright, like a lot of modern firearms out there, they're built to run hollow points. But all the firearms that come from, especially military applications, they're designed for full metal jacket ammo. They're not designed for fragment ammo, hollow point ammo. It doesn't mean you can't run it, but especially as a hand loader, it's something you got to be concerned with. And I get back to my point of this video is, you know, the safety of it. You know, it mentions in this book and a lot of other reload manuals. I read this one cover to cover after I got it. And it mentions in here as far as when you start working up a load, the reducing your powder load by 10%. This here is a chart about velocity and pressure factors for each 1% of charge reduction. And right here it even mentions, I hope you guys can see that, the Extreme Expansion XTP and Gold Dot handgun bullets have a large, deep nose cavity, makes them longer than the regular bullet of the same weight. This requires a deeper seating depth, resulting in higher pressure. Seating depth is very critical for handgun ammunition because small case and large bore. Visualize seating a bullet 1/16 of an inch deeper in the 45 ACP and in a 270. The usable volume of the 270 is so many CCCs, 4.238, and the 45 ACP is 1.14 cc's. Putting a bullet 1/16 of an inch deeper in the 270 reduces the case volume by 0.06 cc's and 0.16 cc for the 45 ACP. That's hardly noticeable, of 1.7% for the 270. but it's a whopping 14% in the 45 ACP. This large volume reduction has an equally large effect on pressure that is made more critical because of the maximum pressure for a 45 ACP is almost 1/3 of the 270 Winchester. So basically what they're saying there is, with our handgun cartridges, like I said, bullet seating depth, and this is something that I just learned in conversation with my friend in us Sherlock Holmesing, or whatever you want to say, what the hell happened. Now luckily, nobody was hurt. The firearm wasn't damaged. The magazine spring and the follower was damaged, and that's way better than somebody's fingers, hands, eyes, ears, nose, whatever. Or really bad, my goodness, just imagine an extreme catastrophic failure where that slide comes off the gun and comes back and strikes you in the head. That could be death. Or just particles of the firearm. It might be impossible, but let's look at the 1911 here again. Okay, we're empty and clear, clear. 1, 2, 3. All right. Well, let's frickin' look at the chamber. If that would blow up and rupture and those pieces of metal, as I'm firing and that gun recoils, that could come back and hit me in the head and be as forceful as any bullet. Okay? And this friend of mine, see right there, there's the different profile bullet that doesn't want to come in there right, because it's not the round nose bullet. It doesn't want to jump up there. Now don't get me wrong, I carry this handgun all day, every single day, and it gathers lots of dust and dirt and all that. It's due for a good cleaning and a good lubrication, which will help a little bit. But your different profile bullets can certainly affect how it chambers, and you got to be conscious of that seating depth. Because the problem he had is when he sat with that big flat I don't know if I'm going to say this right, but met plat on the surface of that bullet. This here is way bigger than this is, or a normal full metal jacket. Let's see if I have any in here. I think we go deep enough, we'll find one. That there, that's a big, broad, flat bullet there. But it's still not quite like this is. This is still wider at the top. And the problem he was having is it wouldn't drop into the chamber. It was hitting the beginning of the rifling or the forcing cone or whatever you want to say in there, and didn't want to drop in like it should. It doesn't want to drop in there like it should. What we'll do is we'll strip that one out of there. Put this one in, so we got the same pressure pushing up on the bullet. Okay, so now we're starting with the configuration that, let's face it, the handgun and the ammunition was designed for this firearm. And it chambers up just as smooth as silk. Just like it should. as it's closing. You start feeling that, you either got an ammunition issue that's going on, or you really need to clean and lube. You maybe need to replace your recoil spring. You know, the 1911, you should replace that recoil spring. I think it's every 2,000 rounds. Wouldn't be a bad idea. Now, Wilson Combat, I use a lot of Wolf springs, and I think they're really good springs. Wolf, I was told by a technician at Kimber, well, maybe I shouldn't say this because I don't know any of this for a fact. Let me say this. I believe from an educated source. I'm going to edit that part of the video out. The hell with it. I'm going to leave that all in. No, I don't know what I'm going to do. Anyhow, I was told from an educated source that information that makes me believe that Kimber uses Wolf brand springs in their handguns. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I believe. So you can buy Wolf springs from Midway, Browells, whatever, you know, if you don't want to buy springs directly from Kimber. I mean, I have gotten springs from Kimber in Kimber packaging to replace my main recoil spring and firing pin spring and stuff. And they're not, you know, insanely expensive. But you can also, like I said, Wilson Combat, I don't have one. I haven't used one. I can't speak to that, but supposedly he has a flat wire spring instead of a round wire spring of a certain metallurgical makeup and hardened to a certain spring tension, so on and so forth, that he says will go 10,000 rounds before it needs replaced. Don't take this to me saying that the 1911 is a high maintenance problematic handgun. You know, at different times in my life, I've owned 5 or 6 different 1911s. It is my preferred semi-automatic handgun. But I guess what I'm getting at is, I think any semi-automatic handgun out there, the recoil springs have a lifetime. They have to. I don't care if you own a Glock, a SIG, I don't even know, a Beretta, any and all of them. You are going to need to replace that spring after so many rounds to maintain that handgun at peak optimum performance. Man, we got really off track there. My point is, as we go along here, I don't remember where it is in this book, but he talks about in the, you know, with lead bullets that you're casting yourself, reducing your powder charge by 10%, the listed starting grain, and working up from there. And between me and a friend of mine, he had that situation where that's what should have been done, and then he would have realized where, you know, looking for pressurization and this, that, and everything, and then he possibly wouldn't have had the failure that he had. That could have been, thank the Lord it wasn't, a lot more catastrophic than it was. I mean, any failure in a hand load is something you don't want. I just wanted to pass this on. I know I got off track, and I've float around all over the place while I'm talking. And maybe that's why people don't watch my videos the whole way through, because I sound like a damn flake. But anyhow, it's just something to be conscious of. You seat that bullet because of a nose profile or whatever it might be a little deeper, especially a cast bullet, where you can't find that exact bullet in your reloading manual. Okay, there's so many cast bullets out there of slightly different design. You know, you have all the Keith bullets. You know, Lee has a whole bunch of bullets. You know, you have Lee traditional bullets. You have Lee tumble bullets, which is what these 30 calibers are. You know, something like this, I can find, and it mentions in that book that the load is reduced, the powder charge is reduced for this bullet in the book, because you have to seat it a little bit deeper because it has this large cavity in the nose, which makes the bullet inherently longer to be the same weight. Now I know for a bunch of people this is going to sound like duh type information. Well, yeah, no crap. We all know that. And I agree, we do. It's simple volume. If you take a whole bunch out of the center for a hollow point bullet, for it to maintain the same weight, it has to get longer, or the nose has to get thicker, so it's not as tapered, or whatever the situation might be that the manufacturer does with the bullet mold. I think this here is probably the same mold that bullet there came from. Not that I cast these bullets. But I'm going to guarantee that that's it right there. And that would fit in there perfectly, except for the additional thickness that the powder coat has on there. It would drop right in there. You can, you know, it's a big broad. It gives you that big flat head on there, which will help your cast lead bullet when it smacks what you want to smack with it be damaged. I mean, you know, unless we're shooting paper for target, you know, let's make no mistake about it. We're loading ammunition that is designed to transfer a bunch of energy, trauma, punch a hole, have a wound channel, a temporary wound channel, into whatever we hit. Okay? So, whether that be an animal, whether that be an intruder into our home, or I'm just going to throw this out there, or whether it's the jackboots that our country's heading towards and they had to deal with in Nazi Germany. Many years ago. You know, that big broad met plat on the end of that bullet, and that's going to hit with a ton of smacking energy. And it's going to help, you know, squash that bullet and make it bigger profile, not near like a hollow point. And really transfer that energy into who you're shooting. Now, okay, is that big flat bullet Well, no, it has everything going against it. Has everything going against it. You know, it ain't a pointed bullet. You want to pierce bulletproof material. You need a pointy bullet traveling at high velocity so it can drill its way through there. A relatively slow moving bullet out of a handgun with a big flat surface out there, or even a hollow point, that'll get tangled up in Kevlar fibers. It'll certainly get stopped by, plates for a plate carrier. It's not, there ain't no tungsten cores in any of this that are designed to penetrate. That tungsten core, in the famous green tip ammo, that's like a damn little needle in there. So that all that energy can be focused on that little tiny spot so it can force its way through that piece of steel. But that doesn't mean that this ammunition isn't effective. You know what I mean? Big bore, big heavy bullet, smacking into that stuff. They're gonna know what's going on. It's gonna slow them down. It might not create a terminal wound instantly, but I don't think they're gonna be left on their feet too easily either. But anyhow, now I'm really veering into a dangerous area. Trust me, I am a patriot of our nation and our fighting forces, and I support our troops, our police officers, firemen, EMS, all of them across the board. They all deserve our community support. They just need to make sure they are acting, and I'm hoping that a whole bunch of those people that we're talking about that are going to be looked upon to enforce unjust laws against our Constitution are going to say no, and they're not going to do it. They're swore to uphold the Constitution of the United States. At least our troops are. I don't know what a cop swears into. I know I have a lot of friends that are cops. I could very easily find out. I don't know if they're swore to obey the mayor and the governor and uphold the laws of the state, or if they're, I don't know exactly what the wording is there. And like I said, I don't want to get into some weird area where Facebook flags my videos, kills my channel, or, and I'm joking here, I have any additional FBI satellites monitoring my house than I probably already have, just from the amount of gunfire and practicing and whatnot of enjoying our shooting sports and the freedoms in our nation that we have. We don't want to draw their attention to us any more than it already is. And don't be, I'm going to tell you right now, and I got this from reliable sources. In the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, they say and they tell us that they get, that when you go to buy a firearm and get a background check, that they're supposed to get rid of those records. Well, I have it from a very good source in the police forces that those records are not gotten rid of in the time frame that they're supposed to. They keep them. And that's how they know where our guns are. Or at least where they're supposed to be, where they were registered to. And that's why it's so illegal to sell a firearm without going to an FFL, so they can't track where it's going and where it's located now. And make no mistake about it, That is so they can come and collect them. You can't say, oh, I don't own it anymore. Well, then they're going to arrest you anyway. Because now you sold, whether you did or not, whether you got it freaking hidden or buried in your backyard, and you're just telling them that, you're telling them that you broke a law. I sold that gun. Well, you sold it without going to an FFL, so it's illegal. Now, long guns, you don't need to do that in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, I don't believe. At least you didn't used to. Who knows now? But handguns, if they come and go, hey, Piketown Patriot, we have here, you bought this handgun at this date, you know, we're here to take that away. But, you know, let's say it gets to that evil, that level, where I don't pay my gun tax that they want to put in place. So they come to collect it. You're not paying your tax, and this says you own it. And we have no records that you sold it. Well, if I go, well, I sold it. I don't own that firearm anymore. Well, then I sold it without going through an FFL. So now I broke the law, and they're still going to lock me up. So their end goal is still the same. Somebody that might resist them, they have now locked up. And I owe it to my country. I owe it to my family to not be locked up. If that means I'm laying on the ground dead, it's the same as being locked up. I'm not doing my family any good in prison. I might as well be in the ground. I might as well stand up against an oppressive government, like the forefathers of this nation did. Let's not forget how this nation started and why all these protections and protections of the people, of the people's rights being trampled. The Constitution is not to control the people at all. It is to control the government from being oppressive toward the people. Make absolutely no mistake. And anybody that thinks the Constitution of the United States is there to control the people doesn't understand it. I mean, it's right there, it's written. Numerous and numerous times over in there to prevent the government from, you know, oppressing the people or taking the people's freedoms away, so on and so forth, whether it's the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, the right to not incriminate yourself, you know, on down the line. I don't have them all memorized, and that's a shame, because as an American citizen, I should know all my rights by heart and exactly what they are in the Constitution. And that's something that I should know. I should research before they change it without anybody knowing. And I should teach my kids. Alright guys, well, if you like this little video, I'm probably going to try and do another one here today. If you like this little video, man, we bounced around all over the place with this one, but you know, give me a like, give me a thumbs up, subscribe. There'll be more videos like this for sure. And even if you just like hearing me going off and ranting and raving about what's going on in our country and what they're trying to do to our nation, because you feel like me, you know, to paraphrase a song that's pretty popular out there right now. You know, am I the only one? Well, I know I'm not the only one that's screaming at the TV, what the hell's going on? What's happening in our country? Why does nobody recognize it? Why doesn't anybody understand what's going on? But I'm sure there's a whole bunch of you out there that feel the same way I do. I tell you, I'm getting madder and madder just sitting here thinking about it. All right, well, give me a like or a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you like hearing an old frickin' hillbilly bitching about what's going on. I'm batting at bugs if you can't see them. I'm not crazy. And, hey, keep shooting. Keep enjoying our sport. And our right as American citizens.